So when I was creating the rendering experiments that I showed in my last video, I encountered something very interesting to me, which is a set of debug renderers that Minecraft left in from development. Now typically this sort of thing is left out, but sometimes you will see examples of this that are left in, such as I think in some Sonic games. In particular, I can remember seeing some debug renders. Now in Minecraft, I actually tried looking into them to see if I can get any information in particular on these debug renderers, and honestly I couldn't find much. I found like a Reddit post and a GitHub repository, and that's it. That's the only two things that I found in regards to these debug renderers. There's quite a few of them, and they show off different aspects of the inner workings of this game. For example, one of them shows pathfinding, another one shows how water flows, another one shows block updates, that sort of thing. So let's look at the first one. I have pathfinding. So this one was super easy to get working. Some of these actually were very challenging to get working, to get into a functional state. But pathfinding was super easy. I just had to enable it to get it to work. Nothing fancy there. All the connections to the inner workings of the game were made and left in the game. Now some of these I had to make my own connections to the debug renderer from the game using mixins, which were pretty interesting to learn. The next one is called water debug renderer, and now these names are taken straight from the internal names. So this one in particular, when I have flowing water, it shows off the water level, the height of the water. So you can see it's 8 when it's completely full, and then it goes to 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then of course when there's no water it doesn't display anything. Now the next one is pretty interesting. This is the only one of the debug renderers which is actually accessible in the vanilla game without mods. You can typically access this using F3G. There isn't much more to say about that. It just shows the borders of chunks. And yeah. The next one is called Height Map Debug Renderer. And this one shows the different max heights of certain categories of blocks. For example, could be the highest solid block, could be the highest block in general, could be the highest light blocking block. I don't remember it too specifically on what they are, but that is the general idea of what it displays. Now this one shows the collisions of different blocks. So you can see, for example, stairs, excuse me again, stairs have collision on the bottom portion and the top portion. And fences, for example, extend much higher than their visual model because they need to stop players and entities from jumping over. So you can see if I F5, I cannot jump over because I'm not getting even close to jumping over the hitbox. So anvils actually have a very overly detailed hitbox, which I honestly don't understand the purpose of making it this detailed, but you know, you do you, Minecraft. So neighbor update debug renderer is actually a pretty simple one. It shows how blocks tell each other that something has changed so that they can react accordingly. So if I like place a block or remove a block, it will tell the blocks around it that it has updated. It also shows a number for the amount of times that that block has been updated in that game tick. And yeah, this one's a pretty simple one. It also shows for stuff like opening, closing doors, flicking redstone, stuff like that. Nothing too crazy here. The next one is structure debug renderer. Now this one shows off how Minecraft world generation works. You can see that we have outline boxes around the different parts of the village, and we also have one huge white box around the entirety of the village. And this just, yeah, I think this is pretty cool. The next one is called Skylight Debug Renderer, and this one shows the skylight values of air blocks or water blocks. So you can see, for example, we have 8 up here. Even though I can put a torch next to it, it stays the same because it's only the skylight values. Now let me also show that it has the same effect underwater. So you can see the lower you are in water, the darker it gets. Pretty simple. Now I couldn't get 4 of these, I think, working. So I would like some people to help me look into this. If anyone understands how Minecraft's code works more than I do. But I assume this has something to do with rendering details about how chunks are being rendered, since it is called World Gen Attempt Debug Renderer. Now, Block Outline Debug Renderer is honestly pretty chaotic. It turns every full block face into a complete red mess, and I have no idea what this is supposed to be for. Chunk Loading Debug Renderer. This one shows off different details about the chunks surrounding the player. I believe that some of this data changes when you're loading up a map. So like entity ticking will turn into no ticking when you load up a Minecraft world for the first time. I don't know too much else besides that. I find Village Debug Renderer to be pretty interesting myself for a few different reasons. One, this is the one that has the most data available. So for example, this bell has bell, of course, the name of it. Free tickets 32. So that's, as I understand it, that's the amount of villagers that a certain block can be tied to. Candidates is a list of villagers that can be tied to the block but aren't yet. And owners is a list of villagers that are already tied to the block. Now, another reason why I find this super interesting is because it shows off a random name generator built into Minecraft. So these villager names, such as Crytail and Hookbeard, these villager names are randomly generated using Minecraft's own code. This code is not typically run in vanilla normal Minecraft gameplay, but it is run through the debug renderers. There is also another entity that gets randomly generated names, and that is bees. I'll get to that in a moment. Also, villagers and other mobs have different goals and other properties that are displayed on top of them in different debug renderers. So you can see idle, for example, is a task that the villager is doing. It is idling around, and it shows health and also its villager experience level. I'll show more of this in a different debug renderer. Now, bee debug renderer shows off the bee interactions with flowers and hives and nests. So if I were to spawn in a few different bees, you can see, first of all, they have custom names, which I think is awesome. But second of all, they get linked to flowers when they're trying to pollinate. And then after that, when they're done pollinating, they get linked to hives. So we'll see that in a moment. You can see, there you go, the bee nest has a honey level, and it also shows how many bees are inside of it. And when bees come out, they will be listed under the out category. I also skipped over village sections debug renderer. This debug renderer is also another one that I couldn't figure out. So if anyone has any idea how I could get this one working, please let me know. Next is raid center debug renderer. Now this one I'm not going to trigger because, I mean, come on, who wants to raid a village? But basically, when you have pillagers raiding a village, this will show the center of that raid. Nothing too crazy there. Goal selector debug renderer. Now this is the goals that I mentioned before. Now in the release version of Minecraft, parts of the code are obfuscated. So basically they're given generic names that aren't really human readable and aren't understandable. So for example, we have class 1347, which means absolutely nothing to me. But if you were to play this mod in a debug environment, you would see the actual names of the actions that entities can take. So like one could be walk around far, another could be look at player, another could be breed. These are just different things that the mobs can do in their AI. The next one is game test renderer. I also could not get this one working, although I have a feeling it has something to do with the /test command, which is only available in a debug environment. I actually didn't realize this was only available in a debug environment until right now, just testing it. So yeah, if anyone has any idea what the test command does or the game test debug renderer does, please let me know. Game event debug renderer. Okay, so this one is the last one, and I'm not entirely sure what this is trying to do, but basically it tends to show different events that happen, typically ones that are related to audio, such as button pressing, lever flicking, stepping, dropping items, and others. Bee flapping is another one. Yeah, so that's pretty much all the debug renderers that are in Minecraft. Now, I am confident that I found all of them because they were all in a list in Minecraft's code. So yeah, I hope this was interesting to y'all, and I will see y'all in the next video. See ya!